He's with us. Welcome to Senate Appropriations Judicial Subcommittee. I appreciate you being here. We're going to open, as we do our committee meetings, with a prayer. May I call on Senator Tillery to open us up in prayer? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to gather in a place that's safe, protected by others to be here this evening. We ask that you would give us wisdom and that we'd be able to work through this in a way that's judicious and prudent for the citizens of our state. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Senator Tillery. Well, welcome. Thank you for being here. Appreciate everyone's attendance. We're going to push through this as efficiently as we can. I want to recognize a couple of folks in addition to my Senate members that are on the committee and going to help us through this important work. I want to recognize my assistant, Allie Farmer, to my right, and also Erin Alford, who is my intern this time. She is a senior at the University of Georgia. So let me first address the burning question on everyone's mind in this room, and that is, does Kennedy not know it's 5 o'clock on Valentine's Day afternoon? The answer is yes, I know that. But we had very limited time in which to schedule these meetings because the days are packed with other committee hearing times. And the truth is, it's all the Appropriations Chair's fault, not mine. I'm just a subcommittee chair, but I can't say that because he's the Appropriations Chair, so I can't blame it on him. No, it's not. We actually are living under some pretty tight time frames for all of this. But with that in mind, we started at 5 o'clock. I'm going to move this as efficiently as y'all will allow me, but I want everyone to have the time that they want to have in front of this committee to make whatever remarks so that we're as informed as you want us to be going forward. So with that, we will go in the order of the subcommittee bill. And let me ask my committee members any preliminary remarks or comments that we need to make or hear from anyone before we start? Okay, great. All right, let's start with the Court of Appeals, if we could. And Judge, if you'll just take the mic there, let me get that turned on for you. You should have a hot mic, and thank you for being with us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you for having us. I have never appeared in front of this particular jury, so I've tried to watch some videos, but here to answer all your questions. As you already know, we have a very limited request coming to you for the amended budget. Happy to answer every question that you have about that. Mr. Chairman Tillery, I know this is not the bigger committee, but also tried to heed your remarks in watching Justice Boggs' presentation about making sure we're prepared with information about our numbers, and we can certainly address what we think the landscape will look like in terms of cases at the Georgia Court of Appeals. I can sum that up for both chairmen and the whole committee by saying, as you might imagine, the tsunami is in the trial courts right now. That will be with us later. And so we have not asked for any ARPA funding or rescue funding now because that needs to be in the trial courts. We think the time will come when we can do that, temporary funding to get us through that without having to ask for a ton of ongoing funding. Any questions at all about our court? Again, I've tried to make my remarks very limited because you have a lot to do, and answer any questions you have whatsoever.
Any questions? Okay. All right. Judge, I don't see any questions. So with that, unless you've got anything else, we'll thank you for being before us, and thanks for your comments.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Yeah. In fact, you get bonus points for that, Judge, that presentation. So the audience, for you, those of you playing along in the audience there. All right, we got. Okay. All right, statewide business courts. Judge Davis, good to see you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I will follow the Chief Judge's lead. I won't just say any questions, but this is my third time before this committee, believe it or not. We are well into now our second year of operation. We have just a little bit of background for you because there's two requests I would like to address specifically, and then any questions you guys might have. We have averaged about a case a week, a little less now, case a week since we opened. Our docket topped out at 66. As you may recall, we have a unique statutory provision that requires us to dismiss cases upon objection. So we've lost about 35% of that docket. We have roughly somewhere between 35 and 40 cases now from 25 different counties, 95% of which are small business type cases. And we've adopted Delaware's rule that basically guarantees a substantive ruling on dispositive motions within 90 days. So our constraints are largely our own. We're pushing pretty fast and sort of trying to make our mark, if you will. The requests I'd like to point to specifically are 13.1 through 13.4, and this is page 2 of 15 on the tracking sheet. And I'd highlight 13.1, just that's a annual leave payout for our term clerks. You may recall the way that we built out the personnel for the court. We only have 7 employees. Our clerk of court, Angie Davis, is with me today. Angie operates with herself and 1 other employee, and we share a judicial assistant, which I think I presented to you guys upon sort of asking for initial funding for the court. Whereas I have 2 term clerks that rotate on an annual basis and then a senior staff attorney. So we're doing the best we can, kind of doing more with less. But as it relates to the term clerks, I didn't factor in annual payout leave. So the 13.1 sort of makes up for that. 13.2, 3, and 4 were increases in pay related to sort of foregoing a request for an additional person. We don't have a court administrator. We sort of have divided up administrative duties in the theory that we sort of all do windows, and so we had requests in there. The House, in light of the governor's salary increases, took those requests down. What I would like to do is leave 13.4 at 0 because I think that makes up for it, but you'll note in 13.2 and 13.3 that provided for an increase for my senior staff attorney and Ms. Davis's senior deputy clerk. Like I said, both of whom are sort of doing more than their job description contemplated. So what I'd like to do there is add back $5,000 to those and ask this committee to contemplate a $5,000 increase instead of a 10, where I'd initially requested it, now that we have the governor's contemplated increase of 5 as well. With that, I'm happy to go through the rest of them if you'd like, but in the interest of time, I'm also happy to address any specific questions you all have.
And Judge Davis, I think I understand correctly that the request for the 2 positions to increase, but net, that's in lieu of the full-time equivalent that was initially contemplated. So that's not a part of your budget.
Correct.
Okay.
We took that out.
Thank you for that. Okay. Questions from the committee? Yes, sir. Senator Hofstadler. What's your mic, Senator?
Number 11.
Okay.
The number of cases, you said it was about 1 a week, and then I thought I heard
Right.
you say 60 or something.
Yeah, we opened about a year and a half ago, and we were averaging about 1 a week through December, and then in January with the new year, we dropped down. So we're about tracking it via data, and so we're about 0.8 now a week.
Cases a week, okay.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay. Judge Davis, thank you.
Thanks
for being with us.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. All right. Okay, next we've got the Judicial Council, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure to be with you, and happy Valentine's to you and to Mrs. Kennedy.
Thank you.
I will follow suit, I believe, with
You have a
everyone.
spot at dinner at your table tonight, Charlie, by the way.
I can take you back home to Dalton with me. I will omit with any conversation about the increase in compensation statewide unless directed by you all, and I'll try to refer to the page numbers and lines that are on the document ahead of you. I'll start on page 2, line 14.3. This is actually a funding that was not part of the submission direction from the Judicial Council. Originally, the Council of Accountability Court Judges was under the impression that funds may have been available under the ARPA program to restore some of their funding. And I think the particularized need here is the statutorily required Accountability Court Peer Review Program. Ms. Taylor-Jones is here if we need more specifics about the $18,594 that the House added. But that was not part of our request, but it was funds that they weren't eligible for, as it turns out, when the guidelines for ARPA came out. So the House placed that in front of you, and that's just, it is a recoupment of some of the reduction from the previous budget cycle. Turning to the AOC, Administrative Office of the Court's budget proper, on page 4, line 17.1, that's clearly the lion's share of the request that we made this time around, $569,928. It would actually be a 73% restoration from the cut in the fiscal 21 budget. I've got Mr. Andrew Zoll here with me, who should not be a stranger to y'all, a familiar face to this body. If we need to get into particularized, where that money would come back to, but I think a big part of it goes to programming, physical programming, and travel pieces that were essentially absent during the pandemic time, and is now reviving. It's certainly not back to where it was from a 100% standpoint, but that's the bulk of where those funds are. And then also on page 4 and page 5, lines 17.2 and 17.3, are restorations that come for the Magistrate Court Judges Council and the Probate Court Judges Council, and significantly in those, some of those funds are literally for just expense reimbursement. I know that the executive directors of both of those councils are essentially paying their expenses out of pocket as it stands right now. But if you've got particularized questions, I will do my best to answer them. And then obviously I got Mr. Zoll here as well about what the restoration request would account for.
Any questions? Yes, sir. Chairman Tillery.
Justice Bethel, you mentioned somebody standing next to you. Could you tell us who that is again? I can't see him.
So, as you know, Mr. Chairman, when I was but a humble subcommittee chair, Mr. Zoll was invaluable to me and to this body, and probably still would be, but for the fact that Ms. Malia Wilson, who is here, had an opportunity to advance within the Judicial Council and move to our CFO. And when we had a vacancy, he had the good sense to express interest, and we did take him, and I would say that I regret that we took him, but that would be dishonest because, as you know as well as I do, his ability to serve us is exceptional, and so we're thankful for the move.
Well, that's the one thing I wanted to say. There are very few people that I've worked with in this building who have the same set of skills and acumen as Andrew Zoll, and I think that the council will be very well served. So we miss you a lot, buddy, but the council did a great job.
We missed translation of Justice Bethel's answer. They stole him. That was a long answer, but they stole him. That's what the answer is. All right. Any other questions? Okay, none. Justice Bethel, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Great to have you with us. Andrew, good to see you.
Thank you.
All right. Juvenile court judges, please. If you want me to, I'll run into that one for you. Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for being with us. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Kirsten Wallace. I'm the budget director with the Council of Juvenile Court Judges, and thank you guys for having us here today to put in the information for the request that we have. Hopefully mine's going to be the shortest presentation of all. We are asking for an increase for our juvenile case management system. This is an increase that's long overdue. We've had this product since '98, and it's just long overdue. When we started the contract, it was $75,000. Now we're asking for $100,000. We started with 7 counties. We're up to 42 counties, which represents actually 90% of the case counts for, or the case management system for the state of Georgia.
Okay. Any questions? I don't see any questions. Great.
Okay.
Thank you very much. All right. Prosecuting attorneys, please.
Chairman Kennedy, it's good to see you. It's good to see everybody here.
You too.
Since I'm not under oath, I will say that if I can't be with my wife on Valentine's Day, I'd just soon be with y'all. But I said I
Well
wasn't
played.
under oath. I said I wasn't under oath.
Well played.
I have with me Herb Cranford. Herb is the district attorney in the Coweta Judicial Circuit, and also Chris Jones. Chris is our chief financial officer. And if it's okay with you, so I don't confuse the matter any worse, and I will, I'm going to turn it over to Chris.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening.
Members of the
Welcome.
subcommittee.
Yes, sir.
I'll go through our request. Feel free to ask any questions as we go through or at the end. We're Section 8, page 7. You'll see, first off, the Council of Superior Court Clerks has no request. So that moves us right into the District Attorney's Program, 23.1, $77,281. It's a JRS increase for the employer contribution that did go up in FY 22. This is just something that we did not receive an increase for in the big budget last year. Moving over to 23.2, this is the Department of Administrative Services increase for agency risk premiums. This is related to primarily our liability insurance increase. Claims paid, which is part of how that's done, went up about $400,000 in FY22. So this is to cover that increase in the premiums. 23.3, $150,000 for legal fees for district attorneys and conflict cases. No funding has been appropriated for this for the district attorney's program in the base budget. Just to give some context, in FY21, we incurred $84,000 in these legal fees. In the current fiscal year through December, it's already $68,000. So this would be to assist covering those fees, those expenses. 23.4 and 23.5, those are the two statewide increases those are going to be in everybody's budget. I'll be glad to outline it if need be. 23.6 is a reduction for personal services for actual start dates related really to some delayed hiring for some new positions in FY22. Moving over to the Prosecuting Attorneys Council Program, 24.1. Again, this is related to the JR increase for the employer contribution, and this is really for the Solicitor Generals that are part of the JRS system that we've had of the PAC program. 24.2, $13,515. This is a straightforward increase for office rent escalation, 3% per year on that base standard rent language. 24.3, $35,000. This is IT help desk support for the Tracker case management system. As you know, that Tracker is a system that is utilized by both district attorneys and solicitors' offices. Covers about 3,000 active users currently, 17,000 charging documents, 81,000 evidence-related attachments, and this funding there is to provides help desk support for those using that system. 24.4, initial request was $60,000 to restore training funds for the solicitor offices. Looking at the trainings that are scheduled and the final quarter, yeah, we do support the $20,000 House recommendation there. 24.5. Initial request, $88,530 was annual leave and forfeit leave payout for 2 senior level employees at PAC. The revised amount of $83,697. When we developed the initial budget back in August, the employee that caused the reduction, they retired last month, so we were just able to really true that up. And again, 24.6 and 24.7, those again are the 5,000 COLA increase and the one-time salary adjustment. And that concludes our presentation. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions from the committee? Senator Jordan. What's your number, Senator? Okay, you're hot.
With respect to line 23.3, I think that's it. increase funds to support legal fees for district attorneys in conflict cases, $150,000. Is that the request? Yes?
Yeah, that's the request. yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
With respect to that, is that what pays for like this, is it $60 an hour for private conflict counsel?
5888.
But what we do, DOAS pays what? DOAS pays part of it, and then we'll pay part of it. We
Correct.
contract with private attorneys to pay that.
Who determines the amount in terms of the 5880?
It's in statute.
Okay. And is that like a formula specifically? Okay. Thank
Now,
you.
these conflict cases where DAs have been sued.
Oh, so this isn't even,
This is
okay.
where a DA, a lawsuit's been filed against a DA. That's what we're trying to collect on. This isn't a conflict case where a DA recuses himself or herself from a case, and then we have to go find a conflict attorney. This is where a lawsuit has been filed against a DA for doing his or her official business, and DOAS represents part of that case. I'm sorry. DOAS takes on part of that fee for that private lawyer. If the AG declines to represent the DA, DOAS pays part of that private fee, and then we pay the remainder of it.
And with respect to the conflict counsel, if it's private conflict counsel with respect to when a district attorney recuses, who pays for that? Does that come out of the county funds or it comes out of your funds?
Comes out of our budget. And
Okay.
let me back up. We can take part of that money out of the DA program, but it's still part of PAC budget, DA program, PAC budget. But if we have to pay it, we're going to pay it out of that.
Okay, and there's not a line item associated with that?
No.
Okay.
Correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Senator Tillery, did you have any questions?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the committee? All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right. Office of the Superior Courts.
Good afternoon, and thank you for allowing us to be here. Here today we have our Executive Director, Shannon Weathers, our CFO, Charles Miller, DCA, Dr. Will Simmons. Deborah Nesbitt's here with us, as is Judge Burt Guy, but most importantly, my wife is here because you did schedule it on Valentine's Day, and I convinced her to come with me from Columbia County.
It's the gift
So
that
she's
keeps
a
on
probate
giving,
judge, so-
Just
I don't want to belabor any points. I know that some of you are probably more intimately familiar even than I probably am with our budget. I'm happy to answer any questions as it relates to this. Remember, we have sort of a weird budget in that we have three subparts. We have the council staff, the DCAs, the district court administrators, and then the judge's budget is a third component. And so that is why starting on page 9 of your materials, in line, I guess 25-1, you'll see issues related to the council office staff. You'll see a very similar entry, for example, on line 26.2. You'll see a somewhat similar entry on, I believe it is line 27.4, but the reason is that those three budgets sort of live in different silos. That the council office staff, the judges, and the DCAs live in different silos within that larger budget. We have had, and we haven't started calling this the Glenn Chaney Memorial Fund, but we have a circuit in South Georgia, in what we call the Atlantic Circuit, who has a number of prisons. And just by way of an example, they have dozens of defendants, I don't remember, several murders riot effectively in some prisons that have to be tried, much like what would happen when the Ahmaud Arbery case was just recently tried. A judge from Savannah went down there and spent the time necessary to try that case, but his docket continued to grow. So what we have tried to do is include in this budget some funds because we know this Atlantic Circuit case is coming. This is a specific request from the Atlantic Circuit, and we think that it's going to be an important part of our budget going forward because we're getting more and more cases. For example, in Columbus, where Judge Lumsden had to go try the case that involved their DA at the time. So we're having cases where judges are having to go outside of their home base to cover larger cases or cases where the local judges have conflicts. I think that's everything. Line 27.5 is on my sheet is actually red ink. That is where we have law clerk or staff attorney positions that have not been filled. You were kind enough in last year's budget to give us the number of law clerks that we needed. Our challenge has been that we are not financially competitive. The young people coming out of law school with the debt and whatnot that they're having a hard time going to wherever. I'm not trying to suggest any particular area is worse or better than any other, but it's hard time recruiting them. So we are, this is money that is coming back in the budget because we just didn't spend it because we didn't have candidates that wanted those jobs. I will tell you, when that money became available, all of the interviewing and whatnot had already happened. So we didn't really have a great pool of candidates who were looking for work. They had already sort of committed back in January or so. So anyway, I'm happy to answer any questions that any of you may have relative to our budget. I know you have a lot more to do this evening.
Judge, let me ask you on the clerk issue. What is the clerk pay for the first year?
Don't hold me to the change. It's $43,000, but it's 43 and is that something? 42,950. Sorry, I was a little over. So what we are going to ask is that you just help, if you can, and this is not even for today's conversation, but to help us get our budget in line so that at least a staff attorney can make what a starting ADA makes or a starting PD makes, which is in and around 50. There's just something psychological about that first number being a 5, and you know that when you've been through law school and you know what you could have earned coming from undergrad, and it's a tough sell, and especially when we need some of these law clerks so badly in some of our more rural circuits, and we just have to travel as much as they do. So that'll be something we'll talk about, when we get to the other budget. But anyway, so that's money that's coming back to y'all for now.
Okay. Thank you for that, Judge. And I'll
Yes,
tell
sir.
you, I'm sympathetic to the issue with the clerk pay. I really am, and I think others on this committee are as well. It is a difficult market to hire folks coming out of law school right now. It's a difficult market to find good talent with a few years' experience, and so we appreciate that. And
Yes, sir.
And I think the practitioners that are up here completely understand the value that a good clerk brings to those of you serving on the bench.
Absolutely.
And the efficiency to get the work done that y'all have, which is
Especially when you have
quite voluminous.
a multi-county circuit where you're having to spend so much time behind the windshield.
Yes, sir.
It's tough. But thank you very much for that consideration.
Okay.
And again, if there's anything, I'll let y'all get back to
Okay.
it. Thank you very much.
Nothing else from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thanks for
Appreciate
being
it.
with us this evening. Have a nice dinner. And ma'am, I'm sorry. You got drug up here. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Good. Thank you. Senator Jordan. And 2, 3. Okay. It's hot. Thank you.
So just with respect to what he was saying, I know in Atlanta now, starting salaries for first-year associates is around $200,000. So, and understanding that's not what we're talking about, but if you're talking about the best and the brightest that are coming out of these law schools and how we really want them to support the judges, I think that we should always kind of keep that in mind.
Yep. Good comments. Thank you. Thank you, Senator Jordan. All right. Who's next? Supreme Court.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to present the Supreme Court amended 22 budget. I'm pleased to have Chief Justice David Namias with me today, along with our Chief Financial Officer, Regina Jones, and our Clerk of Court, T. Barnes. Happy to answer questions for you as we go through this. Fairly straightforward. I'm referring to Section 10, page 11 of the documents that you're working off of, and we'll tell you that items 28.1 through 28.5 are pass-through and required amounts. Starting with 28.1 is the annualized daily allowance and increase in commute mileage for an additional justice on our court. 28.2 is the increase in employer contribution rates for the ERS system. 28.3 is the increase for an adjustment to the DOAS self-insurance programs. 0.4 is the salary adjustment for the Georgia State Trooper, and 0.5 is the one-time funding for the newly appointed justice for moving expenses. So those are the first 5 items. Item 6, 28.6, is the request for restoration of FY21 cuts, which are predominantly IT related for both purchasing new IT equipment and restoring and maintaining that equipment. And then 28.7 and 28.8 are the 2 House additions that we're obviously supportive of, Mr. Chairman. Happy to answer questions if any members of the committee have questions concerning the Supreme Court budget.
Thank you, Justice Boggs. As you always do, give us a great presentation. Thank you very much for that. Any questions from the committee? Yes.
I just wanted to comment on the Chief Justice retiring. Really appreciate your years of service, and hopefully you'll have fun.
Well, hopefully our judges can get as much as first-year associates in Georgia.
Wouldn't that be great?
Let me echo those comments, Justice Nominees. Thank you very much for your service.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, members of the committee.
All right. What's that? Okay, Department of Law.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thanks for having us. We're going to try to make it simple. We don't have a request.
Great.
The
Thank
only
you.
change
Enough said.
is the $5,000 pay increase.
All right. What's that? Happy Valentine's. Yeah. All right. Is that it, Mr. Attorney General?
That's all that we
Wow.
have.
You get triple points for that. Any questions from the committee?
Nope.
All right. Thank you very much for being
Thank
with
you,
us
Mr.
this
Chairman.
evening. Thanks,
Appreciate
Mr.
it.
Attorney General. What's that? All right. Public Defender's Council, please. That's him, yeah. That's right. He presented before you were here.
Good
Hey,
evening.
Good evening.
How are you all doing today?
Doing
Thank you,
well. Please
Chairman.
introduce yourself, and
Yes,
the mic is yours.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm Ataya Ali, Executive Director for GPDC, and Natalie Glazier, my deputy for GPDC. So we have 3 items that we have asked. There's one that's missing, and I'm going to take the blame for that and just ask for indulgence to add that to our presentation today. And the 236.1 is the increase for the 5,000 pay increase for full time that the governor has put in the budget. We're just asking you to please approve that for us, because it's going to do a lot for retention and to make sure that we can keep our attorneys. The next one is the 237.1, which is another increase for the 5,000, which is for full-time benefit eligible state employees, and this is to address agency recruitment. And the next one is the same thing, is a salary adjustment to provide parity for all full-time benefit eligible state employees. The only one that's not there is what should have been added, but for some reason we didn't get it to you, and I'm just going to ask that you allow us to add this to it. This is just to do a supplement for our CPDs, and I'm just going to talk briefly about that because I know our time is well spent. Our CPDs are still making the same amount of money that they've been making maybe for the last 20 years. We're about to have some of them walk out because their salary is still at $107. And so you have people with a lot of institutional knowledge, people who are doing administrative duties, they in the court, they go out to the jail in the morning, they do everything that the attorneys and the administrators need to do, but we have kept their salary. It is statutorily dictated, so it's nothing we can do unless I ask you for it. While we ask for an amendment to the statute, I'm asking that you grant a one-time supplement for the next 3 months, April to June, of $197,941, and then we will put it in the FY23. This is a serious request. If we're not able to do this and we start losing our CPDs because we just cannot keep them, it's going to be a crisis of significant proportions. When I think was Justice Judge Rickman rather, that came and talked about the tsunami. Every tsunami and caseload that everybody's talking about, we have to pick it up and clean it. It's a lot of caseload that we have to deal with. We're willing to do more with less, but we don't even have the less anymore. So we're asking for those 3-4 items, and I just ask that you please grant our items.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that detailed presentation. Any questions from the committee? Ms. WC, any questions? All right, thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
Thanks for being with us this evening. All right. Have we missed anyone? That's everyone we had on the list. So thank you very much. Let me open it up for any comments from the committee. Okay. And let me ask Appropriations Chair, any comments you want to give us as we hone in on the work we're going to be doing and making sure that members of this committee get their comments timely to me, and then I will get them relayed to you, Mr. Chairman. Okay.
Remember also the courts are a partnership with local governments and also with feds and different funding sources. So all the funds you see here aren't necessarily all the funds total. And as we prepare answers, we need to hear something pretty relatively quickly. Really appreciate all the time you put into that.
Great, thank you. All right, let me thank Melody Debussy, who does just incredible work for those of us that are up here, makes us understand it so that we can do what we need to do for y'all. So with that, Melody, any comments before we close out? All right, if nothing further, then I'll say happy Valentine's Day to everybody, and we are adjourned. Thank you.